she's not going to be robbed by fraudsters like she's getting robbed today. And the solvency.
So I interviewed with the FBI, and they're like, "Why do you want to work at the FBI?" I was like, "Because I've worked in digital advertising, and I know how much digital fraud there is." And I was telling them, like, there are people out there that must have their entire life savings stolen from them, like their whole portfolio at their brokerage, just deleted, removed, wired out, and they can't get it back, and there's no recourse. They're like, they all looked at each other. They're like, yeah, he's right. We should probably spend more time trying to, kick in the doors of these major criminal enterprises.
Of the federal government will ensure that she continues to receive.
So earlier in this interview, they'd say that 40% of all phone calls from Social Security recipients are from people trying to essentially do identity theft, to do an account and a routing number transfer with the Social Security employee. So he's saying that if you have Social Security, they have your number and they were going to call you and they're going to get your money. Like, so fraud is just so endemic and rampant, and it's almost impossible to stop because it's really just person to person. It's call center to recipient.
The Social Security checks that Medicare continues to work, without which we're all doomed. And the reason we're doing this is because if we don't do it, America's going to go insolvent, we're going to go bankrupt, and nobody's going to get anything.
Why are you guys all doing it? I mean, you can pipe up, but...
You hear that part? That's kind of the funny part. He says nobody's going to get anything. Okay, that's not true, Elon. You know it's not true because we live in a fiat system where we can just keep paying ourselves. Problem is, it's not moral to do that. Everyone's got to go to work and earn their living, file their taxes. So Musk is really a hypocrite here, because he has explained how we just create money out of thin air and every country does it that runs off of paper money. So it's just not true. But really, if you want to properly critique Elon Musk, you would just call him a hypocrite because he's enriching himself at the expense of the taxpayers. Why doesn't he just take a $0 salary and file $0, in income? This is the problem with what's happening. Is eliminating fraud is great, but not being transparent and playing a game or being hypocritical is not really solving problems. You're just obfuscating and not telling people the truth. Like, if he wanted to tell us the truth right now, he would have gone into the Federal Reserve right now at this very moment and said that Congress and the Federal Reserve are the ones that have been fucking you. And Treasury is fucking you too, but on a much more intimate level.
You don't have to be here, right? I mean, you don't have to be doing this.
I have four beautiful children, my wife and I, but we have a real fiscal crisis, and this is not sustainable. And what's worse, back to my children and everyone else's children, is we are burdening them with that debt, and it's only going to grow.
See, there's not a lot of hierarchy here. You guys...
It's kind of funny, we're burdening them with that debt. Debt to who? Debt to the banks, debt to the Federal Reserve. It will be perpetual slavery. It already is. At $40 trillion, that's 40 Apple corporations. That's 40 Microsoft Corp. Those companies took 50 years to build, and they don't disappear overnight because they're fully integrated into society. So when they say that we can't do this to our children, well, if that was true, not only would they slash and burn, I mean, you would have to shut down everything because they're shutting down really left-wing organizations, but they're not shutting down the military. No. Recruitment goals are way up. The pipeline for the meat grinder has accelerated. And all of this debt leads to war, whether internally or externally. And I think we are at that point internally where when you see what they were spending money on, that's enough, in my opinion, for major clashes between the population and the taxpayers and your average citizens and the government, which is wasting all of that money on bullshit. But the international war
I
is
hope
coming.
that was a 60-second clip. Each one of these could be a 60-second clip. You're basically practicing for your campaign right now. Like, I mean, you're right, because if a lot of people, if a normal people ran, America's hungry for normal, sane people.